Good morning, everybody. My name is Cindy Barton, and I'm the program manager of the Center for Creativity, and we are so happy to welcome you to I Can't Make a Stamp with Living Arts. And today we have Candace White, and she is a local artist, and she's going to show us how to carve a stamp and some really other fun things. And yeah, we also are streaming, so hello to everybody watching on the web. And next week, just want to let you know, we're going to have I Can't Sculpt with Waterworks Tulsa at 10 o'clock, and I Can't Draw Portraits, or actually it's I Can't Photograph Portraits with Tulsa Artist Fellowship at 11. And immediately after this workshop, we're going to do improv with Theater Tulsa. So feel free to stick around for that. So I will hand it over to Candace.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay, let's get started. We're going to make some stamps today. This is one of my favorite things to do. It's a lot of fun. I have some examples of stamps I've made before, and we'll go through the process together. The first thing that we all need to do is, in my opinion, the most difficult, and that is choose a design that you want to stamp. I have a book of inspiration floating around and also some design ideas on your tables. I'm going to be using this fish design, so if you want to follow along with me, you can do that design, but really you can choose anything that you want to do. Usually when I start a carving, I freehand draw it onto the block, but using tracing paper is a good way to make sure that your design looks just like the drawing or the image that you want to carve. So I'm going to use tracing paper today so that you can see how that looks. A thing to remember about making stamps is that everything that you carve into the stamp is going to be the reverse when you stamp it. I have an example that really illustrates that well. Here's a stamp I did of the Albanian national hero. So he's looking that way in the carving, but when I stamp it, he's going to be looking the other way. It's really important to remember that if you want to use letters or numbers, make sure that you carve them in reverse so that when you stamp it, it looks correct. The other thing to remember is that everything you carve away will not appear, and everything you leave on the stamp is what is going to appear. So there's different ways to make designs. You can obviously carve away and just have the stamp image. Let me show you an example of what that looks like. Here's a little stamp of an African mask that I made a long time ago. So there's the image that I carved out. But another thing you can do is leave most of the stamp uncarved and just carve little designs into it, and then you'll have a black background with a white design. So you can choose either way you want to work today. I'm going to be carving out this fish so that what I print will be the fish. So let's get started. If you have a design in mind, use that. If not, you can choose one of the images on the table and get some tracing paper, and we're just going to get started. I'm going to trace over my image as closely as possible. And this is just going to be a reference when we start carving. Here we go. For my fish, I want part of it to be carved away and part of it to be left blank. So I have some decisions to make when I finally get it onto the block. So that's the design, and now I'm going to flip it over to put it onto the rubber block. I'm going to push it down and hold the paper. And because I drew graphite on the other side, I really can just rub it to make sure all of the graphite gets onto the rubber block. And you'll notice I left out some of the details. I'll be looking at my reference image while I carve to make sure I've got all of the little details on there. So that should be enough, and here we go. There's my image on my block. Okay, now it gets really fun. Now we get to start carving. I have a variety of different kinds of blades that I use when I work, and I think what you guys have today is one of these really cool tools where you can pop off the end and put all the different blades in. You're going to want to put the number 1 blade in. So what you need to do is unscrew it, find the kind of the blunt edge, and that's going to go into the wide U in the tool, and then you'll just screw it in until it's tight. Yeah, there's some paper. There's all the material should be on that table too. That's tracing paper. There you go. So when you've screwed it in and it's tight, then you're ready to go. So you'll notice that there's a lot of different kinds of blades. These all do different things. There's a V gouge. I have one that I brought here. This is a real fine liner. You can see it's a tiny little V, and that's going to make tiny straight lines on your block, like so. You can hardly see that because it's pink, but that's what the fine liner does. And then you've got wider V gouges. The knives are called gouges because they gouge out the material, the rubber or lino from what you're working. So here's a wider V gouge, and then you've got some U gouges, and then some that are flat, chisel edge, all for different purposes. All we really need today, since we're working with a really buttery, soft rubber and with a small block, all we really need is a fine liner V gouge and some U gouges to take away the bigger spaces on the outside. So I'm going to start with a fine liner. This is one of my favorites right here. And the first thing I'm going to do is just outline the fish by taking away the rubber that's around the line that I drew, because I know that I want that image carved out. And what you want to do is always carve away from your hand. Don't hold the block and carve towards your hand. You will definitely slip and cut yourself at some point. I have done it before, but try to hold your block steady. Push in to the rubber with your gouge and just kind of push along and carve out the little bits of rubber. Sometimes if it stays in there and it sticks, you can pull it off, or you can go in with the knife a little bit more and pull it out. So I'm going to just go all the way around my fish. Let's see if that one's a little better. This one's a little bit sharper. Sometimes if you're having trouble with the rubber, either you can have some really stiff materials, or sometimes it'll be because the blade isn't very sharp. But I'm just going to turn my block, carve around. I'm going to outline the whole thing before I think about what I want to do next. And usually the details are what we do last. If we don't have enough, I would use the fine line. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, if there's not enough, I would see what they need. Just the fine line and the little U. The other, like these, they don't need these. Yeah. Feel free to take this one. Go for it. Okay. Everyone definitely needs the right tools. Yeah, they're different. Yeah, it'll be easy to tell. Okay, when you have your image outlined, what I like to do next is take away all of the outside. And so it would take a long time to do with the fine liner. So find one of your U-gouges in your tool. I have one that's pretty wide and then one that's a little bit smaller. So I'm going to use this smaller one when I'm closer to my image because I don't want to accidentally carve into the shape that I've just outlined. And then in the bigger spaces where it doesn't really matter, I'm going to use the bigger U-gouge. This rubber will sometimes just stay after you've carved it, and I like to pull it off with my fingers, but you can also use one of your blades to do that. Here we go. The wider the carve out around the image is, the safer I feel carving away the rest of the block. Well, that bit just stayed. There we go. You certainly can use the bigger U-gouge to do this part. Just be careful, go slowly so that you don't accidentally carve out the shape that you just outlined. I'm just going to get around his little face. Okay, now I'm going to switch over to this bigger U-gouge. You can use the little one if you're comfortable with it, if you don't feel like swapping out a blade again, but this one's just going to go a little bit faster and be a little bit easier to take everything out. Oh, I've got some green ink from yesterday's stamp class. You'll notice that the pink rubber looks exactly the same when you carve it out as it did before. So sometimes it can be hard to tell what you've carved out and what is still raised. So we'll do a test print before we're all the way done, meaning we'll ink it and stamp it, and that will reveal exactly what parts of the rubber block are still raised. Sometimes you'll get these like striated marks that we call noise in printmaking, and some people like it and some people want it all gone. They want to only see their image. Obviously that is up to you today. Here we go. Almost all gone. Oh, except for this big bit over here. This part I find very satisfying, a little bit meditative. Obviously, the simpler design that you choose, the easier and faster it will be to carve away. I like to have a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of fine details inside my design. So you may or may not make some of those today. That is also up to you. I have a feeling that when I do my test print, I'm going to have some little lines right next to my shape that I can kind of deal with a little bit later. But I want to get it as clean as possible so that my fish looks good when I stamp it. Okay, I've got all the background gone, and now I'm going to find my fine liner tool, the one with the tiniest little V, and I'm going to go back in and work on all these little details. So you'll see that I'm colored this part in black. That means I'm going to leave that raised and just do maybe some line work inside, and where it's white, I'm going to try to carve out. I've got a little line right there, so it might be a little bit tricky, but I'm just going to do my best. So I'm trying to work between these two lines to just carve out all the white spaces that I left in the stamp, or rather pink spaces in this case. So So I'm going slow and trying to match the angle of the drawing in my stamp. This is where it gets really tricky when there's really little tiny lines and then they don't actually come all the way out because this pink rubber is so soft. So sometimes I will use this tool to kind of like poke it on one end and make sure it comes out, but sometimes you need two tools to get those little itty bitty bits. So I'm outlining the fin and the middle of the body. Let's work on the face. Whenever I've got a little sharp point, like right here in the fish's kind of nose mouth area, I start with the end of the tool in that area because that is the way to get kind of like the finest, sharpest point. There we go. Now I'm going to do the other side. I don't really know what a fish mouth looks like, but it'll hopefully look cool for this stamp. Circles can be pretty hard. I tend to kind of keep the blade in and turn my block around, or sometimes turn the blade around depending on the size of the material I'm working with. Especially when you're working this small, sometimes it's easier to turn the blade. But with this rubber, you kind of want to just turn the whole block around. I'm not going to be too concerned with what's been carved out and what hasn't at this point because the test print will show any little leftover areas that I need to go back to. So I'm just going to try to get what I can see. In my original drawing, I had some lines inside of the fins here. I'm just going to draw one of those in really quick and see if I can work around them to take away the fin inside and make that white, and then have the keep this outside area dark. I'm debating whether to go back and add some texture to this part, but we'll see after the test print whether that would look cool or whether it looks good the way it is. There we go. And one more tiny little fin, making it really interesting for myself by working really small. So right here, I can hardly tell what I've carved out and not, but the test print will help me see that. Okay, so I've got the body, the face, and these fins. So I'm just going to do the top fin and the bottom fin, and then I'm going to do a test print. If anybody needs a finer tip, I have some available. If you're working on something like this that's needs some little details, I have some really teeny tiny V-gouges for you. Having the right tools makes a big difference. I've experimented with Speedball and some Japanese brands, and I've learned how to sharpen blades, and it just makes a huge difference to have tools that work well. And it makes it more fun. It also makes it more dangerous because when they're super sharp, you can stab yourself pretty easily. I did bring Band-Aids. Yes. Yeah, there's something called a slip strap that you can buy online. It looks like just a little wood block, and it comes with this solution that you rub onto the leather, and you just kind of sharpen your blades with it I've heard Slipstrop is what it's called. Yeah, it's a really good product. Yeah, and these can just basically last forever if you sharpen them yourself. Okay, so we've got our top fin done. Oh, is that a little bit of the body that I forgot? It is. All right, bottom fin, and then I'm going to test print after I do the bottom fin. Let's see here. I can't quite see where the edge of this is, so I'm going to mark it not entirely straight. Maybe we straighten it. There we go. Sometimes if I know I want to do some fine detail work, I won't necessarily draw it on because if it's very, very fine little dots or little lines, then I'll just kind of demarcate the area that I want to do it in and add them in later on. So for this one, you can see I haven't pulled the little rubber bits that I've cut off yet because I'm hoping that when I go back and do the line at the bottom of this fin, that will just take them off. They can be very finicky. Let's see if my plan worked. A little bit, kind of. Okay. So I've gotten to the point now where I can't quite tell if I've missed a spot with carving or not. So I'm going to do a test print to see how this looks so far, and then if there's some little spaces that still need to be carved out, then I'll wipe off the ink so I don't get very inky fingers, and I will do that. Here we go. It like never gets old looking at your first stamp after carving. There he is all inked up. I can already see that there's going to be some noise, but I kind of like a little bit of noise. Makes it look real handmade. There we go. There's my test print. Cool. He's looking in the other direction. Sometimes I forget that happens. I'm definitely going to take away this spot and that spot. I think I'm going to just take away all the noise because there's not enough to make it interesting. And then I might go in and make a little line in the two fins because that sounds fun to me. Could I get a paper towel? If you got it, sorry. I can't reach it. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If you just go back and work without taking the ink off, you'll get ink all over yourself. Maybe you like that. I kind of don't. Okay. Now I'm going to look at the reference. Because I took the ink off a little bit, I still can't totally see. But let's see. Here's a line that I wanted to take out. I wanted to take out that extra bit in front of the nose. Although, do you say nose with fish? Do fish have noses? Or is it just like the front of its head? Things I wonder about. Take that away, take that away. It's not necessary to go very, very deep into the block. You just want to make sure that when you ink it, it doesn't get inked and then show up on your paper. That's all really. Okay, so there's that bit. And then a little bit behind the fin that I would like to take out. There we go. This line could be thinner, so I'm going to do that too. I'm going to make that line a little bit thinner by just taking out like half of it really slowly so we don't mess up. Okay, so there's that. We were going to put a little bit of a line. I'm noticing that that's not very square, so let me square that just like a little bit more. And then I'm going to put some lines in the tail fins. These are really thin because I've got my super fine liner really thin there, really thin there. I think I like that. I'm going to do one more test print and then decide whether to put some texture in the top of the body. When you're inking, it's really important to try to get an even coat. Yeah. These are super sharp. Be careful. Yeah. Yeah, try to get an even coat of ink and try to press really evenly and hold down part of it while you press so that it doesn't move, and then kind of make a ghost image. Now I press so hard that there's extra noise. But I'm kind of liking that. I'm going to go back and take away some ink. I'm going to take away some more noise from around the image. I'm just going to carve out more of the background, and then I might do a few stripes behind his head, and then I think my fish will be complete. If the rubber gets stuck in your knife, sometimes if you tap it, it'll come out. Here we go. Let's see, there's some more above your head. I can't wait to see what everybody else is carving. I'm kind of shackled to this table right now, but looking forward to some show and tell afterwards. Is anyone else making a fish with me? Sweet, cool, nice. Good. We'll have a whole school. We'll print them all together. That'd be fun. We can stamp everybody onto the same paper. Did anybody pick a hand? I thought about doing a hand this morning. No, nobody's doing a hand? Okay, I just noticed that his front fin looks kind of funny, and since it's carved away, I can't really do anything about that. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger to pretend like I meant for it to be bigger all along. Yeah, these guys, yeah, be careful, it's real sharp. Yeah. Let's see, here's another spot where I would like it to be a little sharper. Okay. I think I do want to add a little bit of texture in his top. I'm going to put some lines right here. These turned out a little bit, so thin and so shallow that they're not really visible, so I'm going to make those a little bit wider too. The great thing about test printing is you can do it as many times as you want and change your mind, but just not about the things you're carving away, really. So these are so thin that they're not even really visible. I'm going to make them a little wider. I see a little thing above his head. With the tool that you guys have, you've got to switch out your gouge to do different things. So it might be cool to have everybody on a different gouge so you can just swap and hand each other the gouge you want to use. Yeah, I would use a U-gouge for this. You mean the outside, the background? The little tiny bits? Yeah, you want to leave the dark part, right? And you want to, yeah, I would just kind of dig in. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, just like push a little bit and take it out. Yeah, just like that. Okay, I'm going to put a couple little stripes behind my fish head and do one last test print, but I think I'm almost done. There's one little stripe, two little stripes. The great thing about carving rubber, and also linoleum, a little bit easier with linoleum, is that if you do accidentally make a mistake and carve something out, you can take some of these little bits that you've already carved, find one in the right size, and just kind of glue it into the space that you carved out by accident. Often that will work. Let's see here, a couple more lines, and then we might be good. Oh, I almost exclusively work with linoleum. But linoleum is a little bit different. I was going to talk about that. So today we're stamping, so we're using rubber because it's nice and soft, and you can flip it over, squish it onto paper, and you'll see the impression. With linoleum and wood, it's much stiffer, and so usually you'll print by leaving the linoleum block down, putting ink over the top of it with a brayer, and then pressing the paper on top and using a Baron or a printing press. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a different process, a lot messier, but I absolutely love it. And yeah, I thought this was better for a 45-minute lesson, but had we lots and lots of time, I would definitely bring some linoleum for everybody. Okay, here we go. Another test print, perhaps a final. There we go. I like that. He's got his little lines showing behind his eye and in the back fin. This little teeny tiny bit right here, I'm going to take that away and just act like I always meant for this to be thinner. And there's still some noise up at the tip top that I'll take away. But like I said, some people like these little lines because it makes it look very handmade, not machine-made. That's not the blade I wanted to use. Is that inspiration book floating around somewhere around here? I had a binder with some images in it. Is it over there? Yeah. Could you grab it for me? Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. So this is my finished fish stamp and fish print. Here's a hawk that I did using a small linoleum block. So as you can see, you can get sometimes even finer details. This is just a book of kind of ideas, different things that you could stamp and print. You can really go pretty complicated. Here's some where the white design has been carved out, but the background has been left black. Beetles are great. Armadillos are great, puffins. Really the possibilities are endless, but fish, birds, insects just look incredible as little stamps and prints. Some abstract kind of organic stuff. These are, I believe, used for henna in India, so these are carved out of wood. I just thought it'd be a fun idea to try, but some of these little details are pretty complicated. Simpler is always easier. These skulls and eyes are super cool. I want to try them. These are some stamps that I made a long time ago. And then this was made using a linoleum block. That hawk, and then the owl. And, oh, there's some of my armadillos there. Also made out of linoleum. that I have been printing onto shirts. Of course, yeah. Linoleum is a little bit easier, and so with these you'll edition your prints and do kind of like a run of 10, 20, and then you're not supposed to do any more. Like printmaking tradition says that you make one edition and then they're numbered and then you don't keep printing. Stamping obviously is different. Does anyone have questions?